Hey, what's up? It's your boy Toxic Boyo, and I'm coming to you from a perspective of someone who has been playing Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild off and on for about 9 months. And at this point, I have only freed 2 divine beasts. I have defeated Waterblight Ganon, and I have defeated Thunderblight Ganon. No, sorry, Windblight Ganon and Thunderblight Ganon, I think. I'm actually not sure. No, it was Waterblight because the first beast that I freed was Ruda. This is also not exactly going to be a scripted video. This is me just talking about my general thoughts on the game. And it's also me finding a BS way to call my Nintendo Switch a business expense this year when I file my taxes. Anyway, I bought my Switch this year at the very beginning of lockdown because I was like, you know what, I'm going to have a lot more free time. I can finally play this Zelda game I've been wanting to play forever. And much like with Crash Bandicoot, I have played just about every main Zelda game you can name. I've played Oracle, I've played Four Swords, I've played the first 2, even though they're not great. Played Link to the Past, Link Between Worlds, Triforce Heroes, all sorts of games in the series. Twilight Princess, Wind Waker, Skyward Sword, Ocarina of Time, Majora's Mask. You know, I've been around the park a few times. All that being said, though, this isn't going to take the sort of approach that Aaron did in his sequelitis about Ocarina of Time and Link to the Past, where I'm going to tell you what a Zelda game should be based on my experience, because if you've played 4 different Zelda games, you've played 4 different Zelda games. If you played Link's Awakening, Link to the Past, Ocarina of Time, and Wind Waker, those were 4 very different experiences, even though all 4 of those games are great. Some would consider each of them to be their favorite Zelda game. I think that's fair to say. So, if you want to get into what makes a Zelda game or what's required for a Zelda game to be enjoyable, all I would say is that there needs to be a sense of exploration, an incentive to go on the quest that you're on, and a feeling of satisfaction when you accomplish something. And Breath of the Wild absolutely has all 3 of those things. And I love the structure that if you want to, as soon as you get that paraglider, you can go fight Ganon. You can go fight Calamity Ganon. You won't win, but you can do it. And that's awesome, you know? And the incentive is definitely there. I mean, he beat your ass 100 years ago, so of course, hey, we got a score to settle? That sort of thing. That's pretty cool. I love the way that the game looks. I love how it sounds. I love how you interact with the world. Breath of the Wild is certainly a well-made game. It's beautiful. It's a lot of fun. But it's not for me. And there's a couple of reasons that I feel that way. A, I hate motion controls. I've always hated Nintendo's motion controls. So anytime I'm trying to aim with motion controls, it feels wrong. Anytime I'm doing a puzzle that requires motion controls, it feels wrong. Especially that one with the giant boulder in the maze. You know the one I'm talking about. I love the shrines. And I especially love the ones where, like, I have to sit in the room for like 3 or 4 minutes trying to figure out what the game wants me to do. I like a puzzle where I have to turn my brain on. But that was neither challenging, complicated, nor fun. That was just annoying. Really, really annoying. And it took me about an hour to do because I'm on a Switch Lite. The motion controls aren't very good. Now, as far as exploration and the wanderlust that the game tries to instill in you, it does a fine job. But I feel like the world in the game is a bit too big, and it's very easy to just end up somewhere that you're not supposed to be. You know, it's not like Skyrim or something like that. That's a bad example. A game where it tells you as you go into an area about what type of equipment or what level you should be before you go there. Like Ghost of Tsushima is like, hey, you're too weak to be here. I wish that Zelda Breath of the Wild would do that sort of thing, because there were multiple times I was just fucking around. I would find a horse and ride it somewhere, and I'm like, hey, there's a monster, I'll fight it. Only to find out that I might as well be shooting this thing with spitballs. You know? Is that my fault for just wandering around and not going anywhere that makes any sense? In a game about doing that very thing, a game that compels you and encourages you and rewards you for doing things out of order, playing the game how you see fit, doing things at your own pace? I don't think so. I think I'm doing what the game wants me to do, but not the way the game wants me to do it. Does that make any sense? Because obviously, you're supposed to go for the divine beasts in a certain order. Because if you try to go for the salamander on the volcano first, you're not going to live long enough. You know, the game doesn't start you with fireproof equipment. If you have a spear or a wooden shield or a torch on your person in your inventory, they'll catch on fire and you won't have them for very long. You know? So it would be nice if the game would give you some sort of indicator as to what you are or are not supposed to do at any given moment. That itself is a little bit frustrating, and it makes it not as fun as it would or should be to explore the world at your own discretion. That isn't why I don't like the game, though. That's one of the aspects. Another one is the combat. There seems to be what should be a spectrum as far as the combat is concerned, but what it feels like a coin. On one end, you have the same very basic aggro it, lock onto it, and do a backflip when it swings at you and use the flurry rush. And on the other side of the coin, you have this Devil May Cry style video type thing where people will put an ice cube under this creature to make it shoot up into the air, and then they'll hit it with a stasis, and then they'll chuck a bomb at it, and while it's stuck in that stunned animation, it'll do a whole bunch of crazy garbage, right? That is absolutely unnecessary. But it makes me feel stupid because I can't do any of that stuff. That's not how the game is meant to be played, but as we were discussing just a little while ago, the game was designed to not be played in a specific way. So you should be able to handle a combat situation from the same perspective that you would handle any exploration situation. Do it how you want. But that doesn't always work. Because shields and bows and swords and other weapons in this game do this little thing called shattering utterly. And I don't like that. I don't inherently think that the idea of a weapon or an item having durability is a bad concept, but I do think that it is executed poorly in the game. There's no health bar or indicator that's constantly on the item in question. The only indicator that you have as to whether or not this weapon is about to break is it'll tell you that it's badly damaged, you use it about 2 or 3 more times, and then it explodes. Up until that point, you have to keep a mental log of how many times you've hit something with it. And that's not fun. I don't want to have to create a flowchart of every weapon, shield, and bow I have and how many times I've used it so that I can get a pretty good gauge of whether or not I'm going to have enough swords to finish this boss battle. You know, and I like that you can use runes in the boss battles and do interesting things with that, but it just feels like they built the game to foster creativity and unconventionalism in your problem solving, but they did not construct your arsenal to follow that same philosophy. I know some weapons are stronger than others. I'm pretty sure the Master Sword doesn't break, but I haven't seen the Master Sword yet. I don't know how long it takes to get the Master Sword. I'm sure the Hylian Shield doesn't break. Haven't seen it yet. Don't know how long it takes to get it. I don't know how long the game itself is. I've put about 20 hours into it, and I just feel like I'm at a good place to put it down. You know, this isn't like my Crash Bandicoot 4 video where I'm trying to convince you that the game is bad or that anybody else that likes it is tricking themselves or anything like that. This isn't to say that Breath of the Wild is a bad game. I'm saying that the way that the game was built does not gel with how I have been trying to experience it as a player. I don't think that it's my fault. I don't think that it's the game's fault. I just think that there's something about it that isn't clicking for me. And I felt the same way about The Witcher 3. I played The Witcher 3 for a couple hours, didn't really get into it the way that everybody wanted me to. I'm scared that the same will happen with Cyberpunk, but we'll see what happens with that. Another thing that I would like to say about the world of Breath of the Wild is that it is extremely vast and extremely barren. It is possible to walk around for 10, 15 minutes in that game and not see anything. And with a game that big, that's a problem. Play Fallout New Vegas, play The Witcher 3, play Red Dead Redemption 2, play Batman Arkham Knight, play any open world game and pick any random direction and go. See how long it takes for you to find something out in the wild. It will not take nearly as long as it does in that game. I'm not going to say that that itself is a bad thing. I think it's supposed to be a parallel of the narrative of the game, how there's hardly any people left because of the Great Calamity. That's cool. I respect that. That's great. It doesn't work for me. I'm sorry. I want something to engage me in such a way that I have a reason to continue playing from moment to moment. I don't like lulls in a game, especially a game that still costs full price 3 years post-release, and especially a game that has been hyped up and rated 10 out of 10 by every critic and every person imaginable on the internet since March 1st, 2017. I don't think that I'm crazy out of my mind or expecting too much by just wanting an experience that is consistently engaging, consistently interesting, and grows in intrigue and challenge and difficulty at a consistent rate. Sometimes the game feels like it can go from 1 to 100 instantly as far as difficulty goes, and sometimes it feels like it goes from 100 to 92 as far as difficulty goes, and it's just, and it doesn't feel organic. I mean, if I'm fighting a Lionel, I know that's going to be a hard fight, so I'm not going to complain that I got my ass beat a couple times fighting him, but I eventually beat him. Fast forward to Waterblight Ganon, that fight was incredibly easy. And then you fight Thunderblight Ganon, and once you actually figure out what you're supposed to do, that fight's incredibly easy too. But you fight this random ogre in the woods as a boss fight, and he's actually quite difficult. But then you fight this guy that's got telekinesis, and it's super simple. And I feel like that is a product of the design of the game being so non-linear. You're supposed to fight these bosses in whatever order you want, so the experience can be consistently, gradually more difficult, or it could be easy, hard, easy, hard, easy, hard, 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 easy, easy, hard. You know what I mean? Like, I don't like that. If there were a way that the game could have been designed to consistently become gradually more challenging, complicated, and difficult as you continued in this non-linear fashion, it would have been Game of the Generation. I think that it very much could have been a rival to Ghost of Tsushima, Spider-Man, Horizon Zero Dawn, Cuphead, What Remains of Edith Finch. It could have been one of the greatest games of the decade. But because it's so inconsistent, because it's so boring at times, because the game likes to just be like, hey, that sword you've been using, it don't exist no more. Because of these types of factors, I don't see myself willing to tough it out for another 10, 15, 50 more hours until the game is over. So, with all that being said, if you have any suggestions on Switch games I should play, I've been looking into Fire Emblem Three Houses, I've been looking into Pokemon Let's Go, I've been looking into a lot of stuff. If you have any solid suggestions, toss them to me. I'm more than willing to check them out. None of this has been a review of the game. This is not me trying to sway your opinion of the game. If you like it, that's great. If you don't like it, awesome. I don't care. That's just how I feel about Breath of the Wild at this point. I'll see you later.